Hi, it's Joe here. In this video, I'll give a short overview of the PS5 storage situation, unbox the Seagate FireCuda M.2 SSD with the official heatsink pre-installed, and then show you how I installed it into my PS5. So, it's been almost a year since the PS5 was launched, and instead of using a hard disk drive or HDD like the PS4 to store data, the PS5 uses a much faster solid state drive or SSD. To put it into perspective, the read speeds of the PS4 hard drive are around 50 to 100 megabytes a second, versus the PS5's SSD, which has read speeds of around 5.5 gigabytes a second. This is a minimum of 100 times faster, and also twice as fast as the Xbox Series X. This allows the console to load up and render games much faster. There is one issue, however. Although the PS5 comes with 825 gigabytes of internal storage, the operating system takes up a fair chunk and only 667 gigabytes are usable. Games are getting bigger, and with many titles taking up 30 or 40 gigabytes, some are even coming in at around the 100 mark or even exceeding that. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War takes up a hefty 220 gigabytes, and with COD Modern Warfare also taking up another 100 gigabytes to give access to Warzone, that's almost half your storage gone. As of September 2021, a PS5 firmware update unlocked usage of the additional M.2 SSD bay, allowing those lucky enough to own a PS5 to add in a third-party SSD and increase the usable storage. There was also a firmware beta a couple months earlier, allowing some to test the new features, including the SSD bay. However, all SSDs aren't created equal, and there are some specific requirements which Sony has released, including it being a PCIe Gen 4x4 M.2 NVMe SSD with supported sizes ranging from 250GB to 4TB. There are a growing number of PS5 compatible SSD drives that meet the required specs, with the top ones able to reach speeds of around 7GB a second. One of the most hotly anticipated and highly recommended is the FireCuda 530, made by Seagate, who are pretty big in the storage game if you didn't know. The FireCuda 530 is an M.2 PCIe Gen 4x4 NVMe SSD, clearly ticking all the boxes for PS5 compatibility, and I've got the 1TB, but all available versions from 500GB up to 4TB can be used in the PS5. I had this on pre-order, but I am seeing it out of stock in quite a few places online. Certain global events have made it frustratingly hard to get both the console and the memory that goes inside it, but hopefully the manufacturers will catch up with the backlog sooner than later. You can get a version without a heatsink, but it is definitely recommended to use one. If you got the version without a heatsink, you can get a third-party one from Amazon for roughly 20 to 30 quid or dollars. And these drives do produce a lot of heat when in use, and using a heatsink helps to dissipate the heat so your SSD works better and lasts longer, and I definitely want mine to last longer as it costs near enough half the price of the console. So before installation, I've had a quick look in the settings menu of my PS5, and you can see the only two options are the internal custom PS5 SSD, which has the 667.2GB of usable storage, and the external drive, which is my Samsung T7 Touch portable SSD, and I've got 500GB there. Getting into the installation, the first couple of attempts were unsuccessful, I can't lie, even following Sony's instructions, but once you've done it, it gets easier. You want the console detached from everything and put on a flat surface. You can see I'm using my leathery desk mat. Usually my mouse and keyboard live here, but I thought it best to use the mat and avoid scratches. You want to get hold of the faceplate on the same side as the disk drive, but in the opposite corner. If you have the digital only version, the PS5 logo should be face down and the power buttons facing away from you. You should be able to see from where my hands are in relation to the ports exactly where to apply the pressure and lift the faceplate slightly up, then slide down to the direction of the ports and power buttons. Many guides follow Sony's example with this great top-down angle of the console, but I couldn't actually see where the pressure was being applied, and this is not something you want to break. So I'm showing this from the side so you can see exactly where I lifted the faceplate from. But when you are doing it, best to have it face down for stability. So here we have the M.2 SSD slot that the FireCuda 530 will go into. Then using a small Phillips head screwdriver, unscrew the bay cover, and then once that's off, there's another little screw and spacer that holds the drive in place. Unscrew those two and put them to the side. Now it's time to break out the SSD. So much power in such a tiny thing. The benefit of having the heatsink pre-installed over installing a third-party one yourself is that it's done in a controlled environment with the thermal pads that help to transfer the heat optimally placed for maximum efficiency. This should make it run cooler, and Gaming Trend did some testing of this which showed the FireCuda 530 running cooler with the official heatsink than with a third party one. Other third party ones might fare better, but with the official one custom made for this drive, you would think they've optimized it to the max. So now we want to line up the connection slot with the exposed part of the SSD and give it a firm push to click it into place. You can see it lines up quite nicely with the pre-cut gap for the spacer and screw we took out earlier. This will line up with the 80 mark as that's the length of this drive in millimeters. So we screw that in, and with the heatsink version I have also meeting the size requirements, it's small enough that you can still get the SSD bay cover back on after. If you use a third party heatsink, do check the size against the official requirements. Once you've put the SSD cover back on and screwed it in, put the PS5 faceplate back on. So line it up a couple of centimeters away from the top edge and then slide it towards the top and push down till you hear and feel a satisfying click. It should then be a complete unit again. Now we have installed the drive, we can plug everything back in and then switch on our console. You can see it has recognized the M.2 SSD and gives me a choice of not formatting and turning off the console or formatting the SSD. I'll format it, which only takes a few seconds, and you can see it shows us a read speed of just over 6.5 gigabytes a second. Apologies for the blurry screen, my autofocus was being a bit silly. So now we can log back into the PS5, and I did this in the last days of the firmware beta, as you can see. Now if we head over to the storage menu, you can see it now has the M.2 SSD storage available as a usable location, and we can see it's the FireCuda 530 with a 1TB capacity. I then moved a bunch of games over and fired them up, and they worked seamlessly, as if on the console storage itself. So I hope that was useful. If you have or are planning to get a PS5 and the FireCuda 530 with heatsink, the process will be exactly the same if it's another SSD with a heatsink pre-installed, including the WD Black SN850, the Gigabyte Aorus Gen 4 7000S, and Sony's Next Storage NEM-PA. There are quite a few others available without heatsinks, or which may need a smaller heatsink to fit. A really cool option is the Sabrent PS5 heatsink, which replaces the SSD bay cover plate. It could be an interesting option. If you like this video, why not check out my recent PS5 review, where I go through my experience of the console to date, the recent firmware updates, and games I'm looking forward to from the 2021 PlayStation Showcase. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.